Welcome back. Welcome back. It is a Tuesday show. It's a Tuesday show. I uh I had a moment when I was about 20 years old. I'll never forget this moment. Sometimes, throughout your life, you'll just come to realizations. It's part of being an adult. It's part of growing and experiencing things and being able to see things a little more accurately with a little more context as you get older. You have these moments as you get older. You're like, wow, I never thought of it like that. That thought, this experience will change how I see whatever it is going forward. And I will never forget this day. I walked into a Subway when I was about 20 years old, right near me where I lived. And I saw a cop there. He was in line in front of me. And for whatever reason, this time, I took a look at that cop's gun. And I thought, man, that guy has death on his hip. And he's able to dispense it at his discretion. His morality, his interpretation of any situation, his surroundings, his critical thinking, all these things play into whether he will dispense that death that is on his hip. I remember thinking it so clearly, like, what is stopping him? And I had these thoughts. What is stopping him from just dealing death? Not only did I think about what would stand between somebody's death, and this officer, if he felt so compelled. And it was a lot on this officer. And then I began thinking, but what if he were to do something? What if he were to do something? And at that point, in my internal dialogue, I quickly dispelled it. I said, look, to myself, we can't stop crazy people, right? If he's crazy, he's crazy. But this is America. If he should do something like murder somebody, he would be held accountable. He would be judged, convicted, sentenced, and he wouldn't be able to do it again. At least he would be held accountable if he were to do something. Nothing could stop him, really. I couldn't stop him. Nobody in line could stop him. Only his morality and his critical thinking could stop him from murdering someone. Not discharging his weapon in the line of duty, but murdering someone. But if he should, he would be held accountable. This is America. That is in serious jeopardy now. The whole thought that there is no way that somebody would not be held accountable for murder, that is no longer something that we can just take for granted here in America. The developments of the investigation of Renee Good's killing, of all the stories I've brought you, some I've told you, this really scares me. This is the ball game right here. This is something that's paramount. This is something that will have long-lasting effects. You might, even though it's getting lost in the narrative, you might want to consider the developments of this investigation and what is going to come after it and the state of the DOJ right now. This is one of the things that will change us fundamentally from being the America that you all grew up in into something else completely. Because we can no longer take for granted the thought that a murderous officer abusing the enormous power that they've been given to murder somebody, that they would be held accountable, no doubt. They would never be able to do it again. They would be in jail, or possibly worse, whatever. We can't take that for granted anymore. Now, I told you that state and local officials have been barred from access to evidence. They aren't just taking a back seat in the investigation to the FBI. They are barred from any access to the scene, the investigation, interviews, evidence of any sort. Local and state officials are completely barred, quote, barred. Well, now the Civil Rights Division, criminal section, has now said that they will not be taking part in this investigation either. The Civil Rights Division's criminal section will have no hand in this investigation. And we're going to get into this and what that really means, and the break from the norms of the DOJ, the break in policy and appropriate procedure. What a divergence this is. This is a clear message to all law enforcement, all federal agents. The Democratic Attorney General of Minnesota, Keith Ellison, said when you put together with the state authorities, when you put that together, he's saying when you put together the Civil Rights Division criminal section not taking part in this investigation, with the state authorities being excluded from even access to the evidence, like shell casings, the car, I don't have any confidence that a use of force investigation is actually even happening when it comes to the death of Renee Good. That is a very stark, in no uncertain terms statement out of the AG in Minnesota. Mr. Ellison is flat out accusing the FBI of not conducting an investigation of any sort into Agent Ross's possible murder of Renee Good. Quote, I don't know for certain that they are not doing anything because they have been amazingly uncommunicative. But they are not telling us what they are doing. This is even a step further than what I had theorized and said could be a terrible outcome of this. I had said, how naive am I? I came on this program and said, man, Kash Patel and the FBI, they could tamper with evidence. And I came out and I said, they could withhold evidence to make a prosecution at any level, state or federal, near impossible. I hadn't considered, like Mr. Ellison, that they wouldn't be conducting an investigation at all. And now with the Civil Rights Division criminal section saying, well, we're not in any way, shape, or form conducting an investigation into this. Well, that's more evidence that they're not doing anything. They have absolutely no intentions of finding Agent Ross, guilty of murder. They have no intentions of collecting evidence, conducting interviews that would lead in any way to Agent Ross being held accountable. Like I said, state and law officials have been blocked. You know that. State and local officials, since these agencies have been founded, since there has been an FBI, they have worked with state and local officials on murders of this type. Period. Always. Always. What does Vance have to say to that? Saying the idea that Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and a bunch of radicals in Minneapolis are going to go after and make a guy's life miserable because he was doing his job that he was asked to do is preposterous. Yeah, his life is miserable. I saw that video. He walked away. It looked completely unaffected by that woman's murder. He had just taken a life and he was strolling along. I mean, there was no change in expression on that man's face. I submit that Rebecca Good's life has been made miserable from this shooting. Agent Ross looked completely unaffected. Don't tell me his life is miserable. He's gone back to work. He's ready to take another life. Rebecca Good's life is miserable. Renee Good's friends and family, their lives are miserable. Not Agent Ross's. Minnesota's Bureau of Criminal Apprehension said last week that it was open to conducting a full investigation of the incident should the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI reconsider their approach and express a willingness to resume joint investigation. Good luck with that. But that's what you say. You bring it up again. You make it public, domain that you are here for an investigation. And you didn't really attack. You just said, look, if they'd like to reconsider, we are here to help. That's how you do it. You keep saying that. As evidence fails to come out, as progress is not made in the investigation, as progress fails to be made, you keep saying that. Just keep that tone. You don't want to become a target. Keep that tone, okay? Normally, law enforcement officers are rarely charged for use of lethal force. Let's be clear about that. Normally, it's rare. It's rare that they are charged. The law provides significant leeway for officers to use force when needed. We know that. We know that. That's not big news here in America. We've seen it. We know it. We know that to be true. But a robust federal investigation usually determines whether somebody is culpable. A robust investigation, including state and local officials. A robust cooperative effort every time is used to determine whether the officer is guilty or not. Sometimes a robust investigation, they can lead to conclusions that are a little more nuanced. Like, hey, the first shot was constitutionally protected. The first shot was, necessary, is, determined a lawful use of force by this officer. But the next two, those weren't. Sometimes something as nuanced as that can be determined from a real investigation. And the Civil Rights Division is involved in every one of these. Every one of these. Because these probes are usually done under the denying a person their rights under the color of law section of the U.S. Code. It's section 242. 242 of the U.S. Code. Denying a person their rights under the color of law. As a law enforcement officer, did you deny a citizen their rights? That falls under the Civil Rights Division. So every time an officer takes somebody's life, the Civil Rights Division is intimately involved in the process because of that section of the U.S. Code, 242. Let's be clear, though. Legally, federal regulations do not require the Civil Rights Division to participate in these investigations. Legally, they can step aside. Legally. Do they ever, or should they? No. They never step aside when it comes to somebody's constitutional rights being violated, possibly by an agent or an officer. They never step aside. Should they step aside? Are you kidding? In this climate, as rights are being trampled left and right by this immigration policy, they should be involved now more than ever. And instead, their new head has gone the other way. Now, civil rights prosecutors typically work alongside the FBI agents, okay? Typically. I keep talking about the norm, and you can hear the kind of the depression on this subject in my voice. Usually, FBI agents and the Civil Rights Division prosecutors, they work hand in hand on things like guiding investigatory strategy. That's the Criminal Rights Division. What strategy are we going to use to approach this? What strategy is appropriate? The legal process, grand jury subpoenas, appearances. This is all done essentially by the Civil Rights Division prosecutors. In a real investigation, they would take an intimate role in each one of these things I'm describing to you. But none of those things exist here. The legal process, a strategy. No need for the criminal division if there's no strategy and no process and no subpoenas and no witness testimony and no collection of the evidence, actually. Don't need the criminal division prosecutors to help us with any of that if none of that is happening, because there's no actual investigation to find out if Agent Ross is culpable for the murder of Renee Good. The thought that if an agent or an officer murders somebody, that they would be held accountable for sure. This is America. We can no longer take that for granted. God, if Mr. Ellison is right, and they're actually not even conducting an investigation, what is the message to you, the American public?
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Brett breaks things because someone has to.
Oh, I could see that, but you know what? The rhetoric keeps getting ratcheted up, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And you know, now we've had an opportunity to look at that video. There is no ambiguity for anyone with eyes to see that the individual that ended up getting shot in this case had been taunting officers along with her partner for an extended period of time. And then you hear her partner say to drive. She goes in reverse and right in the path of an officer. Now, is that justified use of force? To me, it's not even a close call.
Sean, we call that means, intent, and opportunity. Did that individual have the intent? Look at those minutes leading up to the shooting, and we will see what I would consider some pretty important intent. Did that individual have the opportunity? Yes. Did that individual take that opportunity? Yes. A 4,000-pound missile is not something anyone wants to face, especially in a split-second decision-making process in a very already inhospitable environment. Hats off to that ICE agent. I'm glad he made it out alive. I'm glad he's with his family.
Hats off to that ICE agent. This was a terrible tragedy that could have been avoided. The agent was forced to make a tough decision that ended tragically. Nothing like that. Out of Gregory Bovino, and by the way, you notice that big black strap across his chest, very reminiscent of another uniform we saw just a little bit ago, a few decades ago. Gregory Bovino, we've talked about him, the rock star of CPB. Nobody embodies xenophobia, racism, an authoritarian regime like Gregory Bovino there. And we're going to get to feature him later in this show. Oh, just wait. We'll get to Mr. Bovino. Let's hear what else he had to say.
But I think they're creating an environment where they're putting your lives at risk. And I think more agents will get hurt, more individuals will get hurt as a result. Am I wrong? Do you connect the rhetoric to the violence?
Sean, that's perfectly stated. Absolutely. That rhetoric does cause the violence. We've heard those elected representatives, as you've said, say some very terrible things about law enforcement, about federal agents, and that's reflected in what you see by that vocal minority out on the streets. And they act.
Okay, that's it. That's all I can take of you, Gregory. He said some more things about the activists and this and that, and we'll get to that as well. But he says, Democratic lawmakers are saying very volatile things about this officer. Oh, how dare they, harumph. Oh, panties all bunched up about what Democrats are saying. How about we hear from several former law enforcement officials that were interviewed by the Washington Post? Several former law enforcement officials had this to say. They reviewed the footage. Okay? And all of them faulted the actions taken by the ICE officer. Quote from these officers: Ross placed himself at needless risk by stepping in front of Good's vehicle, escalated the situation, and went against best law enforcement practices. Law enforcement officers should not position themselves in front of vehicles, and they need to try to de-escalate confrontations and must generally avoid shooting into moving vehicles. They must have saw a different video that Gregory Bovino saw. All of these former law officials. Go ahead and tell me how these former law enforcement officials, cops, prosecutors, this group that was interviewed by the Washington Post, go ahead and tell me how they're all leftist activist Antifa cells. Go ahead and tell me. I'm here for it. I expect it. I'm here for it. How could we trust what any of them say? How can we trust what the whole world, except this administration and disgusting MAGA, have to say about this shooting? Can't trust any of it. We all saw the video. We all saw the video. It's okay, bro. I'm not mad. Puts the vehicle in reverse. Looks at the officer, Agent Ross. Turns the wheel away from Agent Ross. Looks at Agent Ross and his positioning to the vehicle once again, and then slowly moves forward. For that, she was murdered. We all saw the video. Let's zoom back out again for a second. The Civil Rights Division, the one that has taken a step to the side, decided not to involve itself after it has been involved in every single agent or officer shooting ever, is now being run by one Miss Harmeet Dillon. Harmeet Dillon. And since Miss Harmeet Dillon took control of the Civil Rights Division under Trump, it has had drastic changes. Changes to its mission, changes to its workforce. It used to have 400 attorneys. It has less than that now. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to all of it. We're going to get to that. But it has drastically, overwhelmingly less agents there now, less lawyers, attorneys. The division has changed its mission statement across all its sections to focus less on racial discrimination and more on fighting diversity initiatives. They are using the Civil Rights Division. They are using the Civil Rights Division to attack equality, diversity, and inclusion. Again, you got to laugh. Otherwise, you will cry. I mean, it's a huge joke to them. Our weaponization czar, Ed Martin, he's there to hold other administrations accountable for their weaponization, not to prevent Trump's weaponization, to hold past administrations and officials and lawmakers accountable for their weaponization. It's a joke. It's a joke. Our new head of election integrity is an election denier. It's all a joke. And it's right in our face. It's right in our face. They are so understaffed that they cannot complete their workloads at the Civil Rights Division right now. And here's a joke. Here's another joke. So there were some people that were familiar within the Civil Rights Division that were interviewed for this Washington Post article. I thought this was funny because this particular person who said this quote, they hadn't heard the news yet. This person said that the division still has the expertise to respond to cases such as the Minnesota one. And they pointed directly to the section's chief and deputy, who are both career attorneys who serve in those positions during the Biden administration. So this person who was asked about what's going on in the Civil Rights Division, this person said, look, they can still handle this case in Minnesota because their chief and their deputy are career attorneys and they've been in their positions for such a long time. Well, this person had not heard the news that Chief Jim Felt and Deputy Paige Fitzgerald, they both quit. I mean, they just quit, like yesterday. Quit. But they're not the only ones. They're not the only ones, okay? Yeah, the most notable changes at the Civil Rights Division right now has involved police use of force and facilitating it. That's the big direction change away from civil rights abuses towards prosecuting, investigating, squashing DEI, and towards facilitating more use of lethal force by our officers and agents. That's what our Civil Rights Division is up to these days. And we know this because the new Civil Rights Division, you remember Breonna Taylor being shot in her apartment? Remember that case? The new Civil Rights Division requested to a judge that the Louisville police officer convicted in connection with that raid be sentenced to 1 day in prison. And the administration even wrote a memo to that judge saying, quote, the Biden administration should not have prosecuted the officer on civil rights charges on which a jury convicted him. They're blowing right past the fact that the jury convicted him, right? Biden should have never prosecuted this officer in connection with Breonna Taylor's death. It was inappropriate. That's what the new Civil Rights Division says. Blowing right past the fact that a jury of his peers convicted him. Oh, yeah. The Civil Rights Division used to have 400 people. Now it's down to 100, something like that. I got it here somewhere. It's about 100. It's about 100. Chief of the section, principal deputy chief, Mr. Felt, Miss Fitzgerald, acting deputy chief. Everybody from the department's public integrity section quit once Trump dropped the charges against Eric Adams. That was last year. They all quit. The public integrity section. They all just up and quit. And then the Justice Department comes out and lies and said the officials had requested early retirement prior to the shooting. Well, the Renee Good killing was January 7th. Fitzgerald and Felt, they quit on the 12th of this month. They just come out and lie to us, lie right to our face.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, where the truth hits harder than the headlines.
All right, so we're going to put a hat on this. The Civil Rights Division was created in the wake of the 1957 Civil Rights Act. That's when they created it, the Civil Rights Division. Like I said, about 300-something agents have quit since Miss Dillon was put in charge. And I want you to hear from her and we'll move on. I just want you to hear from her and we will move on, okay? To the mass exodus in her department, she spoke to it. She was asked about it. She was asked about the large mass exodus of attorneys in her office. She insisted the division would align itself with the president's priorities. And she said in April that she welcomed the departures of civil rights lawyers. Quote, I think that's fine. We don't want people in the federal government who feel like it's their pet project to go prosecute police department based on statistical evidence or persecute people praying outside abortion facilities instead of doing violence. The job here is to enforce the federal civil rights laws, not woke ideology. Is there any doubt in your mind who this person is? Their allegiances, just how deep, right? Their allegiance to their cult leader goes. And I'll use that here. Clearly, this is a very zealous person. Clearly, this is somebody all the way in. This is a Bill Pult, right? This is a Pam Bondi. That's who this is. This is one of those people. A Brendan Carr. All the way in. All the way in and willing to use their power in whatever way will promote Trumpian philosophy and policy. Period. Zealous. Talking about woke ideology in the face of 300 civil rights attorneys quitting under your watch. That's fine. See ya. Because we're not going to be looking into civil rights abuses anymore. We don't need you. Nope, not going to be investigating. Not going to be investigating the Criminal Rights Division. But, yeah, so they're not going to investigate, right? Local and state authorities, they're not allowed to investigate. And it looks like the FBI might not be investigating at all. Possibly. We'll see. I'll tell you what they are investigating. They are investigating Renee Good's possible ties to activist groups. That they have confirmed. They haven't confirmed at all any investigatory details of Renee's killing. They haven't said a word about that investigation, but they're willing to come out right now and let you know, confirm with you, the American public, that they are looking into her activist group ties. On Sunday, President Trump described Miss Good and her wife Becca Good, quote, as being professional agitators, adding that the authorities would find out who's paying for it, offering absolutely no evidence for his claims. Trump and Miller have repeatedly described those protesting the administration's immigration crackdown as a shadowy and violent cabal. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And in recent months, the Trump administration have repeatedly vowed to crack down on left-wing activists. They have filed criminal charges against purported members of what prosecutors described an Antifa cell in Texas. We talked about this. The ones who fired at immigration officers, they couldn't let it go as an isolated incident. This had to be part of a larger scheme. And they vow to uncover this Antifa cell that propagated the shootings in Texas. And it wasn't just Texas. The activists in California, they were accused of plotting to set off homemade bombs outside of two companies near Los Angeles on New Year's Eve. I told you about that plot that was thwarted. And I said at the time, you thwart a plot to plant a bomb, I don't care who did it. Good job. You saved lives. You saved massive property damage. Excellent job. But your absolute feverish desire to link that person to an Antifa cell. It's all about it's got to be an Antifa connection. It's got to be. They just won't stop. And they'll find their connection. Make no mistake about it. They'll find their connection. They will just fabricate one if need be. Is there any doubt in your mind? There's zero chance that the investigations into that Texas shooting, the investigations into the California bombing, and the investigations into Miss Good's murder, there is zero chance that all of them come up with, hey, you know what? Once again, we said Antifa had a command structure and a centralized, a focal, administration, a centralized administration, people pulling the strings and funding. Although we've said this many, many times, and we looked for it here. Nope. Sorry. We just couldn't find any. Shucks. We lose again. Do you think that's even a possibility here? Of course it's not. They'll lie about everything, so they'll lie about this as well. They will fabricate whatever they need to fabricate to create a link between that shooting, that bombing, and this killing to Antifa. Period. By any means necessary. The investigation into Miss Good and her activist ties, it will potentially involve people that aren't accused of committing any crimes at all. Okay? This is not only so focal, so determined to find an Antifa connection, looking nowhere else, not even looking at the murder itself. We're right here. We have to find this Antifa connection. But they're willing to trample people's rights to do it. No shocker there. No surprise there. I mean, when you're talking about an investigation into a terrorist cell, you're talking about criminals. Egregious criminals. People who have committed various degrees of crimes. This will be different. This will be different. This will be the FBI trying desperately to associate a group of people who have committed no crimes to a leftist terrorist group. Who am I talking about? Well, there is a group chat that was used by Miss Good and others in the area that follow local ICE movements. God help anybody on that group chat that Miss Good and her wife communicated with. You are all in the crosshairs. What are you going to tell me? You weren't there? What are you going to tell me? You were simply a member of the chat and you didn't even send a message? You just watched? Tell the FBI that. Tell it to them. Plead your case to Kash Patel's FBI that you aren't an Antifa cell. Scotty.
All right. So a couple minutes ago, the New York Times reported that 3 prosecutors in Minnesota have just quit the office over not just this, but also the lack of investigating into the ICE officer. The three prosecutors are Joseph H. Thompson, who's a career prosecutor and former acting U.S. attorney in Minnesota, Harry Jacobs, Thompson's deputy, and Melinda Williams, a senior career prosecutor. The resignations come because of these protests and everything else like that, but they basically quit because they think it's ridiculous to be looking into her ties, and they refuse to do it. And the fact that they're not, the reluctance to look into the ICE officer that shot her.
Yep. So we're using our U.S. Attorney's Office not to assist in this investigation into the killing. We're using our U.S. Attorney's Office and the prosecutors within it to investigate Miss Good, and now you see the result. These are good people, professionals with integrity that won't have any part of this. This is where the battle lines are drawn with your careers. This is how you choose your allegiance, either to what America used to be and the Constitution and the rule of law, or Trump and Pam Bondi and Kristi Noem and Kash Patel. And to choose, to make that choice, to make that decision, to definitively choose between this or that will cost you your career. Crazy. They're heroes. And I can't wait till the Washington Post or the New York Times or MSNBC, MS Now, or CNN gets a hold of these people and gets a camera in front of them and gets a microphone in front of them. I want to hear about it. I want to hear exactly what you were told to do that you absolutely could not stomach, that cost you your career. I can't wait to hear from them. And we will. We definitely will. You don't resume from that kind of position without letting the world know why. I gotta take it down at Scotty, bro. I mean, this is the deal, dude. This is the ball game. I mean, this is it. You talk about the ball game. You talk about the deal, the big ones. You got to talk about Brendan Carr at the FCC threatening to pull media licenses. That's the deal. You talk about AG Pam Bondi bringing charges against Trump nemesis, people who speak out against him, trying to get them thrown in jail, floating that Mark Kelly could face what kind of charges because he's ex-military? And now this, you're telling me that agents, ICE agents, CPB, FBI, DIA can murder me? And not only will it be in question whether they'll be held accountable, the FBI is not even going to investigate. They're going to investigate my ties, me, the dead person. They're going to investigate my ties into activist groups and try to associate with me with Antifa to justify my death. And what's really sad about this is, although my audience is extremely intelligent and you have no problem ingesting this, go tell that Trump supporter in your life how angry you are about this. Go see if they grasp the legal and precedential implications of something like this. It'll be impossible. Impossible. You'll be so angry. You'll have data. You'll have facts. It's so egregious. They lie so much. It's right in our face. Go convince one of them. I dare you. Let me know how that went for you and come back to me. Becca Good said, on Wednesday, January 7th, we stopped to support our neighbors. We had whistles. They had guns. They are going to examine a wide group of activists that took part in these protests and these demonstrations in her neighborhood. This administration had no problem immediately after the shooting with the accusations that she was a domestic terrorist. Vance, this is classic terrorism. Noam, if you look at what the definition of domestic terrorism is, it completely fits the situation on the ground in Minneapolis. They will go to absolutely the lengths that they will go to back up these knee-jerk, snap-in-the-moment statements will be so unconstitutional. They will violate so many people's rights. They will kick in doors. They will surveil you. They will detain you. They will subpoena you. They will interview you. They will dig into your life. Clean record, U.S. citizen, none of that matters. Thomas E. Brzezowski, the former counsel for the domestic terrorism in the Justice Department's National Security Division, had this to say. It's not appropriate for officials to characterize this incident as domestic terrorism before the investigation is complete. There used to be a process, deliberate and considered, to figure out if behavior could be legitimately described as domestic terrorism. And when it's not followed, then the term becomes little more than a political cudgel to bash one's enemies. Well said. Well said.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. You're back with Breck Breaks Things, where the truth hits harder than the headlines.
Okay. Had to take two on that one. If I don't laugh, I'm going to cry. Pam Bondi has just released a new memo. The timing is right in conjunction with the administration. They're in lockstep. Pam Bondi has just released a new memo, classified as, she reclassifies domestic terrorism, okay? Not only recognizably violent crimes like rioting and looting, but also things, it's been expanded to include things like impeding law enforcement officers or doxing them. That is now included in the classification of domestic terrorism. The memo also asserts that domestic terrorists use violence or the threat of violence to advance political gains or social gains. Among the causes listed to be added to this classification were opposition to immigration enforcement, anti-capitalism, hostility towards views on family, traditional views on family, religion, and morality. Yeah, because Donald Trump is the arbiter of morality. He is a noted theologian, right? The guy who claims, I'm not even Christian. And when goes on a Christian podcast, can't name one verse. And as far as traditional views on family, Mr. How many times has he been divorced? How many times did you cheat on your wife with a porn star? And you want to talk about traditional views on family? Morality? This is the guy that went on Howard Stern's show with cameras working and microphones working and said, hey, when you own the Miss Teen USA pageant, they let you do anything. You can walk right in the back when they're dressing. They're naked or whatever. Nobody cares. Nobody says anything. Mr. 34 count felon, Mr. Libel for raping E. Jean Carroll. Tell me again about morality. This memo goes hand in hand with a new memorandum. Now, there's different kinds of terrorists in the eyes of our government. There are specially designated global terrorists and foreign terrorist organizations called FTOs. And for years, we've had large groups of terrorists on that list, like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. They're on the FTO list. Well, the current list isn't enough for Trump. This whole thing, in Trump's eyes, needs an overhaul. Not only has he personally written up with Stephen Miller and Marco Rubio a whole new list of organizations to be designated as an FTO. We're going to update the list big time. We're going to add a bunch of names. He also released the National Security Presidential Memorandum Number 7, the NSPM 7. And with the NSPM 7, the administration will now compile a domestic terrorist list made up of exclusively his political enemies. So you've got this memo from Pam Bondi telling you what a domestic terrorist is. I'll remind you, if you impeded law enforcement officers in any way or doxed one, you're a domestic terrorist. If you use the threat of violence in any way to ascertain or to advance rather a political or social agenda, you're a domestic terrorist. Or if you are accused or found guilty of any opposition to immigration enforcement, anti-capitalism, or any hostility towards traditional views on family, religion, and morality, you are a domestic terrorist. And you will be added to the NSPM 7. He instructed his administration to target U.S. progressive groups and their donors, as well as political activists. Activists, not criminals or terrorists, but the activists, the donors, the activists. They are all to be added to the list. Anybody who profess undefined anti-American, anti-fascist, or anti-Christian sentiments. Let me say that again. If you are a donor or an activist and you profess anti-American, anti-fascist, or anti-Christian sentiments, you will be on the NSPM 7 list of domestic terrorists. Officially. And by the way, to express anti-American, anti-fascist, anti-Christian, or anti-other anything else views, they're all protected by the First Amendment. Let's just be clear. If you profess any of these sentiments, all of them, everything you say, is protected by the First Amendment, or it used to be. It used to be. Now professing anti-American or anti-Christian sentiments will get you on our NSPM 7 domestic terrorist list. I'm going to let that sink in, man. And here's the best part. Not only is the White House declining to comment on this list, you have no access to this list. You have absolutely no way of knowing if you are on this list. And that is by design. Because let's just say you are a political activist with no criminal record, with no threats of violence, and no intention of violence. Let's just say you are an outspoken political activist and you have been expressing anti-American government sentiment in public or in publication or on a podcast or whatever. And then all of a sudden you look up and you find yourself on the NSPM 7 list, well, guess what you're not going to do anymore? You're going to stop going on street corners, on your soapbox, to local functions, or a podcast, or the radio. And you're going to stop saying anti-American government things because you don't want to end up upside down, tied by your toenails from the ceiling somewhere in a dungeon. Maybe I'm being a little hyper. It took me a while, but that, Scotty, is hyperbolic. I said, when we were doing the show, he's like, is this hyperbolic? Is that? And we were just, I'm like, no, nothing in response to what they're doing is hyperbolic anymore. They have forced this response from those of us who have the freedom to be honest about this with no corporate backing or any political influence, on our show. I can be honest about this. And the things I'm being honest about, no, it's not hyperbolic. Hanging from the ceiling by your toes is a bit hyperbolic. I will admit that. So, back to my example. If you end up on this list, you will probably cease and desist all professions or professing of anti-American sentiment. You'll stop immediately, unless you got the biggest of balls. And that's the type of attention you want from the government. Well, then so be it. You go be a hero. You go show us how it's done. But most of us will stop immediately. They don't want you to stop. They want footage of you getting dragged out of your house and present trumped up evidence of your terrorism. That's what they want. See, we told you. We told you they were out there. Look at this guy. Look at this girl. She's hood over her head, zip ties into an unmarked van, and we'll get to your evidence later. We'll come up with it. Don't worry about it. Check this out. We told you they were out there. This is America's enemies. These are the ones funding Antifa. These are the ones that got Renee Good shot. Look, there they are. Yeah, they're not going to release that list. You get to guess whether you're on that list or not. We're going overtime. We're going overtime, as we have been this week, because we're going to get into a specific example. We're going to show you Stephen Miller's immigration policy. We're going to show it to you. We're going to show you the state of affairs when it comes to this policy. So we are going to go overtime. But let's just be real clear about NSPM 7. This memorandum calls on Attorney General Pam Bondi to compile a list of any such groups or entities to be designated as domestic terrorist organizations. It directs government agencies to target all participants in these criminal and terroristic conspiracies, including the organized structures, networks, entities, organizations, funding sources, and predicate actions behind them. When asked for comment, Senior Justice Department spokesperson Natalie Baldessari said no comment. When asked why the United States has a new list of domestic terrorists and why nobody can read it, Baldessari responded, again, no comment.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, because democracy doesn't defend itself.
Okay. Now, this NSPM 7 list of domestic terrorists, this has, it just came out. Just came out in November, yeah. Yeah, it just came out. Thanks, Scotty. It just came out in November. That's worth mentioning. Right on the heels of Bondi's new memo describing what is domestic terrorism. So now that Bondi has clearly defined what is domestic terrorism, we can now fill up our list of domestic terrorists. You see how it's all come together. It's not just pissing me and Scotty and I off. It doesn't just piss us off. 31 members of Congress have sent a letter to Trump expressing serious concerns about the anti-Antifa executive order NSPM 7. They are calling it that, and we're going to get into Antifa in just a second. They warned that these directives pose serious constitutional, statutory, and civil liberty risks, especially if used to target political dissent, protests, or ideological speech. This is from 31 members of Congress, mostly Democrats. Regardless of whether the president agrees with someone's political views, the Constitution guarantees their right to speak and assemble peacefully. Officials must not label individuals as supporting Antifa or coordinating with Antifa based solely on their protected speech. In fact, neither the memo nor the executive order clearly defines Antifa as a specific entity. Instead, the executive order conflates nonviolent protest and activism with doxing and violent behavior. Without clear definitions and limits, this vague framing could subject lawful political expression and assembly to the same treatment as terrorism. Thank you, 31 lawmakers. That's exactly what they're trying to do. They are equating directly terrorist activity with protest, nonviolent protest, or assembly. They're the same thing in the eyes of this administration. Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan, she was one of the people who wrote the memo. She said, I've only seen this kind of thing in other countries. She called Trump's use of military inside the United States completely and fundamentally un-American. He is going after those who disagree with him or fight back against his corruption and authoritarianism and trying to classify opposition to his views as domestic terrorists. Thank you, Alyssa. That is exactly what he's doing. And there's a large portion of Americans in this country that are all about it. They love it. They love this action. They can't get enough of it. This is the type of thing they expected when they put Trump back in the office. Yeah, no tax on tip. That would have been nice. Don't forget you didn't get that. You got a deduction. So he didn't fulfill that one. And yeah, lower prices. He promised that. That would have been nice. Prices across the board except eggs have gone up. And oh, yeah. The war in Ukraine. That's terrible. If he could have stopped that day one like he promised, that would have been nice. But man, is he making brown people suffer. But more importantly, man, is he's not just triggering the libs. He is decimating the libs. He is actively using every available means at his disposal as president to hunt and prosecute and vilify the libs. It's way past triggering at this point. This is an all-out political war on liberals, leftists, progressives, non-MAGA, and they're using very, very, official means to do it. But there is pushback. Minnesota officials have sued federal immigration authorities Monday. They claimed the Trump administration's unprecedented surge of immigration agents is politically motivated and violates the U.S. Constitution. Minnesota is suing. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said Sunday that hundreds more agents are heading to Minneapolis. It looks like 2,000 is the number now. Looks like 2,000 is the number of agents that is about to descend on Minneapolis. In their lawsuit, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison and the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul are asking a federal court to issue a temporary restraining order to stop or limit the Department of Homeland Security's Operation Metro Surge. Okay? The Minnesota officials allege that thousands of armed and masked DHS agents have stormed the Twin Cities to conduct militarized raids at sites including schools and hospitals. And they said last week that its Minnesota effort would be the agent's largest immigration enforcement operation ever, with, like I said, 2,000 agents. Biggest operation in their history descending on Minneapolis. Okay. Ellison said, quote, "This is, in essence, the federal invasion of the Twin Cities in Minnesota, and it must stop. DHS agents have sown chaos and terror across the metropolitan area and in cities across the state of Minnesota." The defendants in this case are Noem, Immigration and Customs Enforcement Acting Director Todd Lyons, and our charming Gregory Bovino. He's also been named in this suit. So there's this guy. I want to hear from this one guy, Hua Jung Kim. Hua Jung Kim is the vice president of the St. Paul City Council and has been volunteering as an ICE observer. Okay? And he praised this lawsuit. He wants to be a part of it. This guy, Hua Jung Kim. Okay? He's been an ICE observer, watching what they're doing, observing them, auditing them. Listen to what he said. He said, when agents are asked to show warrants, they tell us they don't have to. They are overtly racially profiling our neighbors. They went to one of my constituents' doors and asked them to point out neighbors who are not white. No warrant. None of this is constitutional. But here's the thing. This lawsuit could further complicate a murder investigation, which may or may not actually be happening, because the officials, the federal officials conducting this investigation, are now going to be even more resistant to turning over information. They're going to be more careful, more resistant on what they share and what they do, because they could be held legally liable in conjunction with this lawsuit. So this could actually make them even less cooperative, less helpful, less transparent. That's unfortunate. There's two other lawsuits going on right now. There's one in Chicago. The state of Illinois has filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration on Monday, seeking to place limits on DHS agents in the Chicago area. Lawsuit goes on to accuse DHS of unlawful and dangerous tactics. There's also a suit in California. A bunch of civil rights groups, along with Los Angeles County and 8 Southern California cities, are suing the DHS over what they call DHS's enforcement tactics and how unconstitutional they are. Okay, so here's the thing. I refer you back to yesterday, talking about that appellate court, right? So this is going to be, so they're suing, right? And a district court judge is going to probably, right, decide to halt the action, right? Most likely a district court judge will say, okay, you may be right. They have to stop what they're doing. Okay, just last month, a district court judge issued a temporary restraining order halting the federal raids in some of those jurisdictions in California based on race. And that one made it to an appeals court. I told you what's going on in the appellate courts. That one was actually upheld by the appeals courts. And then it goes to the Supreme Court, which ordered a temporary stay until they can get to it. That temporary stay, let's be clear, that's a stay on the district court judges and the appellate court judges' decision to stop the federal movement or stop the policy. Supreme Court just says, you know what? You and you, we're a stay on your decision. Administration, you continue doing what you're doing, and we'll give you a final ruling whenever we get to it. In the meantime, how many people get shot? How many people get dragged out of their house without a warrant? How many people's cars seized or searched? How many constitutional rights are trampled while the Supreme Court gets to it? This is the process I'm talking about. This is why the courts are so damn important. Okay, in overtime, I wanted to bring this to you. Now, some of you may know about the Target arrests. At a Target store, 2 arrests were made. And our charming Mr. Gregory Bovino was at the center of all of it. We're talking about the case of Jonathan Aguilar Garcia and Christian Miranda Romano. These 2 gentlemen worked at Target, okay? I'm going to play for you how this played out. I want to bring this to you. I told you we would highlight injustices when we opened this podcast, when we started this podcast. It was one of our promises, part of our mission statement. We would highlight injustices. That's exactly what we're going to do right now. I want you to, and by the way, I spent an hour editing the curses out of this because we had a couple of shows where we couldn't submit to political voices or anywhere else really that, monitors language. Just it happened. A bunch of F's happened. So I diligently went through this video. It took me forever. But I'm going to bring to you now what happened with Jonathan Aguilar Garcia and Christian Miranda Romano. Here we go. This starts at Target, where those two gentlemen work. There is Gregory Bovino and his stormtroopers exit a vehicle.
I'm not doing all right. I'm not doing all right. Back up. Yo. See that? Look, they're recording. They're here. What y'all doing? Yo, back up.
You good? What's that? You good? Oh, absolutely.
Your face.
Absolutely. Oh, back up. I'm walking here. Back up.
Like that. Good show.
Hey, that's not a nice guy. Good.
What you gonna do?
Hey, you guys American citizens?
Huh? None of your business. That's what.
All right.
See that?
Just to be clear, Gregory Bovino and his stormtroopers jumped out of unmarked vehicles and started walking towards two workers who are currently on shift at Target. And then Bovino himself starts saying, "Are you American citizens? Get up against that wall. Ha, ha, ha. Are you American citizens? Ha, ha, ha." Let's continue.
You're blocking traffic.
Just going to get a pic. Hold on.
Go ahead. Take a pic right there.
So Bovino takes a picture of the Target employee that's filming.
That.
And there is Mr. Garcia. Jonathan Aguilar Garcia is right there in the Target vest. And then a stormtrooper quickly approaches him.
Come on. Yo.
I work here, bro.
Yeah, he works it.
Touch me, bro.
Look at that. Look at that. Look,
And then he finally grabs him.
Look at grabbing him. Yo, let him go, let him go, let him go. Let him go.
Now I ask you, and I'm going to roll that back real quick. But this time when you watch it, I ask you, former law enforcement officials or military, anybody who has ever worked in any law enforcement capacity, I'm asking you right now, is this correct procedure? To begin to walk quickly towards a potential detainee, quicker and quicker, walk towards them as they film you, then follow them, then get even faster and follow them back another direction before finally lunging at them, all without saying a word. I want to know if stalking and then chasing without saying anything and then finally lunging at a possible detainee, if that is proper procedure. Okay, I want you to watch it again for me. You former law enforcement officials, I want you to watch it again for me, and you determine if this seemed like proper procedure to you.
Huh? Come on.
Not stop in the name of the law. You are being detained.
Don't touch him. What are you doing?
Show me your ID. None of that. No reasoning for following, just stalking and bullying.
Yeah, he works it.
Touch me, bro.
Look at that. Look at that. Look, they're grabbing him. Look, they're grabbing him. Yo, let him go, let him go, let him go. Let him go, let him go. Get off.
Okay. Now we're going to show you Mr. Jonathan Aguilar Garcia being arrested. Crying, outrage, shock, disbelief.
You guys are all on video.
No, don't take my phone. Hey, you got my phone.
Where is the paperwork for that?
Where's the?
They do it on Target. They do it on Target.
Hey, don't.
Stand up.
Where are their forms?
Hey.
Anybody else going to ask? You guys don't have the right. What's your name? What's your name? Find your family.
Jonathan Aguilar Garcia. I'm literally a U.S. citizen.
Give us a phone number.
I'm literally a U.S. citizen.
Why are you kidnapping our citizen? Why are you? Why?
Sir, give us your phone number. We'll call call your family. Give us your phone number.
At least his family. What, you want your family to know?
I literally have my passport.
Let him get out his passport.
He says,
What's your
I
name?
literally
What's your
have
name?
my
We'll find your family.
passport.
Christian, what's your last name?
I have my passport.
Get out his passport.
Hey! Get back there now!
Give us what's the phone number we should call?
That's my mom.
That's your mom? We'll
Yeah.
call you. And your first name's Christian, right?
Christian Romano.
Jonathan Aguilar Garcia is a U.S. citizen working legally in Target. He had his passport in his pocket, and away he goes into that van. They also detained Christian Romano. Christian Romano had people who knew him. And they said he's got his social security card and his birth certificate on the premises. And they said, quote, we don't care. Now, Christian Romano ended up being detained at Fort Snelling Detention Center with no communication to his family or the Times, which it's the Hindustan Times, which went with this story. Nobody could get in communication with Christian Romano. But as far as Mr. Garcia, he popped up just a little time after. You see, he had his passport in his pocket. And this is when we saw him again in a Walmart parking lot, not a Target parking lot. This is when he showed up, popped up, kicked out of a car. As it drove off, this was Mr. Garcia in a Walmart parking lot down the road.
This guy right here, they let him out of the vehicle. They tortured him.
This guy?
This guy right here, yeah. Tortured.
You okay, man? No, I'm not okay.
Bro, it's crazy. My man's bleeding.
They slammed me on the ground.
We got to be able to call somebody. This is ridiculous. You got family around? You got somebody here, man?
I think my girl.
Come on, we in here. Come on, man. You work here, don't you?
No, I work at Target.
You work, bro. Come on, bro. It's okay. That is so crazy. Man, slam this man up in the parking lot.
Showed up at a Walmart parking lot after being thrown out of the vehicle, bleeding. And the vehicle drove away. Is that proper procedure? I'm just curious. Is that regular? Is that regular procedure? As you're going about your CPB and ICE immigration duties, is that legal? Is that how they do it? Pick people up, rough them up, make them bleed. Look at the passport in their pocket, realize, oh, it's a citizen. Open the door and kick them out. Is that proper procedure? What country is this, man? There's a time not too long ago that you would absolutely not believe that was America. Absolutely. And Mr. Bovino, classy as ever. He talked about it.
Agents, unfortunately. But something else here as far as what happened in that Target store is truly I felt sorry for the public. And the reason for that, Sean, is by and large, 90% of the public are happy to see us. They like to engage with us. They like to talk with us and find out about our missions and what we do. A lot of people ask about recruitment and things like that. But when you have that very vocal 5%, it actually scares the public. And, you know, I actually felt sorry for the public in the Target store that day because it actually scared them.
Yeah, it scared everybody, Gregory. It scared everybody for sure. But not for whatever convoluted, spun propagandist reason you just said. It's because they, as U.S. citizens, realize that Bovino and his stormtroopers could pop out of unmarked vehicles, zip tie you, throw you in the back of a van, and then have you show up bloody later. That scares me. That scares everybody. Yeah, they were scared, Greg. They were definitely scared, for sure. They weren't scared for those ICE officers. They weren't scared for your reputation. They were scared that they or their family or loved ones or coworkers who are U.S. citizens could end up zip-tied in the back of a van and show up bleeding later. They are very scared. So a large crowd gathered around that Richfield Target over the weekend. A large crowd gathered. Now, and that's, by the way, Minneapolis. Did I fail to mention that? It's Minneapolis. Sorry if I failed to mention that. Absolute chaos. That community is being devastated right now by this president's immigration policy. Period. Devastated as 2,000 more agents descend upon their cities. So this crowd gathered around this Target over the weekend. This crowd was organized. You better watch it. We're going to hear from Ben Whalen. Okay, he's one of the organizers of a faith-based activist group called Isaiah. And I promise you, Isaiah and Mr. Whalen are now on that domestic terrorist list. I promise you they are. Not that he would be able to see it to confirm such a thing, but I'm telling you he's there. He, among a few others, organized this protest at the Target. Now, this is a multi-faith, faith-based community organization based there in Minneapolis. Not only did they organize a group around the Target, they are calling for Target to take action. They demand that every Target store only let ICE agents onto private property with a signed judicial warrant, and for Target to train its employees of their rights. Okay, I'm here for that. I'm here for that. I'm here for both of those things. He said, quote, Mr. Whalen said, quote, we would like them to post signs about people's Fourth Amendment rights. We would like them to train their employees to respond when ICE is here. So I started thinking to myself, what are the chances that Target would respond to such a thing? Well, they declined to comment. But when you do a little digging, you find out Target is a publicly traded company. The majority stockholders are the Vanguard Group, BlackRock, and State Street Corporation. Those entities are non-politically affiliated by design. So you dig a little deeper. Well, the CEO, and he's been CEO for a while, is a man named Brian C. Cornell. Under Cornell's watch, Target has embraced DEI and marketed LGBTQ and Pride merchandise willingly, freely, and successfully. From everything I could ascertain about this man, if Target were to respond to Mr. Whalen's demands, if they were to respond, I would think Mr. Whalen might be satisfied, at least to some measure. I would think that the response might be one of more of an official nature. Maybe they won't come out and say anything, but maybe some procedures may adjust at Target in the face of this. Maybe it's not Mr. Whalen's influence that would, spur on changes at Target in coordination with this policy, but maybe they themselves, without Whalen's influence, see that, hey, protecting our workers might have to move up the list of priorities. And, yeah, it might be a great idea to just kind of remind our workers of their constitutional rights. Yeah, I think if Target responds, Mr. Whalen and the rest of us might get a response that we are happy with. We're following a lot of stories. I appreciate y'all staying along with me, and we will be back tomorrow. See ya.